My question would be, there are two reform perspectives out there. One is a flat tax, one is a fair tax. I'd like to get your assessments on how those two reform systems, would it benefit or hinder the small businesses, and then maybe your estimation on what would be good rates for those respective systems. So flat tax, fair tax.
Well, my office has written this past year or the year ago about a value-added tax and the administrative challenges for the Internal Revenue Service doing something like a sales tax that would be proposed in the fair tax. And we have concluded that it is doable. You would have to deal with the states, many of whom have their own, and there are a lot of transition issues. Most of the countries around the world don't just have a sales tax alone because it would have to be so high. They have some kind of low-level income tax and then a sales tax as well. So I think it's doable. It's just whether people will step up to that. I would note one thing. What some commentators have said is a sales tax sort of disappears how much tax you're really paying, depending on how it's reported on your receipt. In some countries around the world, you never see it broken out. It's in the gross price that shows up on your receipt at the end. And you have to think, do you really want that disappeared, or do you want people conscious of what they're paying?
Congressman, I would say I don't know if there's it's a binary choice. There's probably going to be a mixture of some sort of rate reduction, hopefully. And I think that's the key as far as we're concerned. I think the lower the taxes, the better for the business, the more investment we can make in the business, the faster we can grow, and the more people we can hire. So I think the notion of a reduced tax rate, which implies a reduced level of government expenditure, I think is the key to long-term prosperity and helps our economy.
And as a small business owner, I would say that anything that takes away the complexity and gives a long-term view is a good thing. It's so difficult with the complexity that we have now. You don't know really until the end of the year what we owe in taxes. I'm an LLC. Money all flows through to me. I claim it on my personal income. The NRCA, I don't know, has taken a stance on this per se, and I'm here testifying on their behalf. But as a small business owner myself, I would see that as an excellent alternative to tax code that's miles thick.
I concur with Ms. Olson. I don't see how we can level off with one sales tax. And I'm also concerned that eliminating all tax levels and going to a single sales tax demotivates capital improvement. You've got to provide some incentive for people to invest, and so this is a tough situation. But I think I know we can minimize the impact of small businesses by lowering the complexity of the code, just removing it completely and going to some single layer tax. That could be very tough.
If I might add, I think some advocates of a sales tax forget how complex the state sales tax are with all of their exemptions and what constitutes a service versus a product and things like that. So you might find that you just have added a new volume of the Internal Revenue Code when you enact a sales tax. So it can be complex.
And follow-up question for Mr. Culp and Mr. Strobel, then what type of incentives do you think that could be provided as far as our tax code to help you to grow your businesses?
That's a good question.
Well, I try to think of good questions.
Well, that's a stalling tactic. The good question.
I think at least for our business, clearly in the energy efficiency business, I think there is some room for promoting more energy efficiency, more rational allocation of resources, at least in the energy industry. And so I think there's room for that in our industry. There's no doubt about it.
And probably more on a global level, I guess, from my own, the way I think is I don't like when the government chooses winners and losers. So I have a hard time in articulating that well. But the NRCA staff, I'm sure, would be delighted to work with you on that.
Thank you very much, and I yield back, Mr. Chairman.